Ladies and gentlemen, there's a saying, watch not only what people do, but what they ask of you. Because often trust isn't broken by grand betrayals, it's chipped away through small, suspicious favors. Today, I want to share a simple truth with you. Not everyone who asks you for help deserves your help. And more importantly, there are certain types of favors that should immediately raise your red flag. These requests often come from people who don't have your best interests at heart. Let's walk through 8 specific favors that should make you pause, think, and protect your peace. These are the kinds of favors that manipulators, opportunists, and hidden enemies will ask of you, wrapped in charm, guilt, or flattery. This is one of the most dangerous favors someone can ask of you, and it often seems harmless on the surface. They might say it casually, they might laugh it off, they might even appeal to your loyalty or friendship. Come on, it's just a small lie, it's nothing serious, I just need you to cover for me, you're the only one I trust to do this. But here's the thing, it's never just once. Once you lie for someone, especially if it's to protect them from consequences they earned, you've set a precedent for them and for yourself. What's really happening is this: they're trying to pull you into their mess without facing it themselves. They want to transfer their risk, their guilt, their consequences onto you, and they're dressing it up as a favor, as if helping them hide the truth is a noble act of friendship. It's not, it's manipulation disguised as trust. Worse yet, the moment you lie for someone, your credibility becomes tied to theirs. If they're exposed, so are you. If they go down, you go with them. And in the eyes of others, you're no longer seen as someone who was just helping, you're seen as someone who was in on it. You might tell yourself, it's just this one time, but people who ask you to lie once will often ask you again, and each time the lie gets bigger, the stakes get higher, the damage becomes harder to undo. And let's not forget what it does to you internally. Lying for someone eats away at your peace. You start to feel the weight of secrets that aren't even yours. You start to doubt yourself, wondering how far you're willing to go for someone who clearly has no issue putting you in a morally compromising position. The people who truly value and respect you won't ever put you in that spot. They won't hand you a loaded gun and ask you to hold it for them. They won't ask you to risk your name, your job, or your integrity, not for their convenience, not for their comfort, and certainly not for their mistakes. So when someone says, lie for me, just this once, don't just hear the words, hear the warning. Because anyone who asks you to compromise your truth is already lying about being on your side. Their quotes, nothing wrong with helping someone in genuine need. We all fall on hard times. But when someone approaches you asking for money with nothing more than a promise and a smile, take a moment. Take a deep breath, because this favor can turn into a slow, painful unraveling of trust, respect, and in many cases, your own financial peace. Let's start with the obvious: money and relationships rarely mix well. Whether it's a friend, a coworker, or even family, the moment money enters the equation, so does imbalance. And when someone asks to borrow money without a clear, realistic plan to pay it back, what they're really doing is putting the weight of their life on your shoulders. They might frame it like it's no big deal. I just need a little help to get through the month. It's only temporary. I'll give it back as soon as I can. You know I'm good for it. But intentions don't pay back loans. Promises don't cover rent. And good vibes don't clear credit card debt. The deeper issue is this: when someone asks you to lend them money, they're asking you to trust not just their word, but their character, their habits, and their history. If they have a pattern of poor financial decisions, if they live beyond their means, or if they constantly lean on others instead of learning how to stand on their own, then your money isn't helping them, it's enabling them. And here's what often happens next. Weeks go by, then months. Suddenly they avoid your calls. The vibe shifts. Maybe they even flip the script, acting offended if you bring it up, as if you're the one being petty for expecting what they promised. The friendship turns awkward, and every conversation becomes a quiet reminder of the debt hanging between you. Now you're not just short on cash, you're short on peace. You're left carrying the emotional weight of someone else's irresponsibility, and worse, you've become the bad guy in a story where you were just trying to help. It's not about being selfish, it's about being smart. Lending money, especially without boundaries, documentation, or real understanding, can cost you more than just the amount you gave. It can cost you trust, emotional balance, and in many cases, the entire relationship. So when someone says, "Can I borrow money? I promise I'll pay you back," don't just hear a friend in need. Hear the unspoken part. "I need you to take on my burden, but I'm not offering any guarantee." Helping someone isn't about saying yes to everything. It's about knowing when your no is actually the most respectful answer for both of you. This might be one of the most manipulative favors a person can ask, and also one of the most revealing. At its core, when someone says, "Can you take the blame for me?" what they're really saying is, "I did something wrong and I want you to protect me from the consequences. I'm okay with letting you take the hit for it." Let that sink in. Whether it's a missed deadline at work, a mistake in a group project, damage to someone's property, or even something more serious, if they ask you to take the fall, they're showing you exactly how much they value your well-being. Not enough, not nearly enough. It doesn't matter if they try to soften the ask. It's just this one time. You're better at explaining things. You don't have as much to lose. "Please, I just can't afford to get in trouble right now. I swear I'll make it up to you." It's all noise to cover the fact that they're asking you to pay the price for something they did, and they're trying to wrap it up in desperation or guilt to make you feel like helping them would be the right thing to do. But here's the truth: no one who truly respects you would ever let you carry their mistakes. People who ask you to take the blame are rarely asking for help, they're asking for escape. They're trying to dodge accountability. And worse, they're telling you, without saying it directly, that your name, your reputation, and your future are more expendable than theirs. The damage goes beyond the moment, too. Taking the blame can put you in a position where others begin to question your reliability, your honesty, or your character. At work, it can cost you opportunities. In school, it can affect your record. In your personal life, it can distort how others perceive you. And the worst part, once you've done it once, it sets a dangerous pattern. They know you'll fold under pressure. They know you'll protect them even when they mess up. And they will come back for more. Even more alarming is when the blame isn't for a small error, but something serious.
Oh! Legal issues.
Ethical violations, things that can follow you for years. Taking responsibility for someone else's mess can snowball into consequences that they walk away from, while you're left cleaning up after a storm you didn't cause. It might be tempting, especially if it's someone you care about. They might cry, they might beg, they might make you feel like you're saving them from a disaster. But here's what you're really doing. You're letting someone else write a false story with your name on it. And every time that story gets repeated, you lose a little bit more of your truth. So when someone says, "Can you take the blame for me?" don't just hear the words, hear the warning bell. Because anyone who asks you to compromise your integrity for their convenience is not asking for a favor. They're asking for control. On the surface, it might sound harmless. a quiet favor whispered like a test of loyalty. Please don't tell them. It's better if they don't know. This stays between us, okay? Not even your partner, not your best friend. I'm only telling you because I trust you. Sounds innocent, almost flattering. But beneath that smooth delivery is something much darker, a wedge carefully placed between you and someone you care about. Because when someone asks you to keep a secret from someone close to you, they're not just asking for privacy, they're asking you to compromise a bond that matters to you. Secrets have power, especially secrets you're asked to carry alone. They sit in your chest, grow heavier over time, and create emotional distance between you and the people you love. Why? Because you start acting differently around them. You become guarded, you edit your words, you second guess what you can and can't say, all while they have no idea why your energy has changed. Now let's be clear, not all secrets are toxic. We all have private conversations and personal experiences, but there's a very specific kind of secret that should set off alarms, the one someone demands you keep from someone you're supposed to be open with, your partner, your sibling, your best friend, your team. These are people who trust you to be honest, to be transparent, not because they own your words, but because they share your world. When someone pressures you to keep something from those people,
Ask yourself why.
is it because they did something wrong? Are they hiding a betrayal? Are they involving you in something that could hurt the very person you're now being told to lie to by omission? Even if it feels like you're just staying silent, silence can be just as damaging as a lie, especially when it's being used as a shield for someone else's bad behavior. And let's not ignore the emotional trap built into this kind of favor. When you hesitate, they guilt you. So you'd really tell them and ruin everything. Wow, I guess I can't trust you after all. I thought you were loyal. They twist your sense of responsibility. But loyalty doesn't mean betraying someone else's trust to protect a person who's doing. True loyalty has boundaries, it has limits, and it always starts with integrity. Once you keep one secret like this, you become complicit. Maybe it's a cheating partner, a friend hiding a dangerous decision, a lie that affects someone else's safety or well-being. And once you're in, they've got leverage. Now you're the one who looks bad if the truth comes out. Now you've got skin in the game. And suddenly, you're not just someone who knows, you're someone who hid it. That's how manipulation works. Quiet, casual, coded in trust. So when someone asks, can you keep this secret from someone close to you? Understand what they're really doing. They're not just confiding in you, they're isolating you. They're pulling you into a private truth that could put cracks in your closest relationships, and asking you to carry the weight for them. At first glance, it might not seem like a big deal. They make it sound simple, even temporary. It's just paperwork. It won't affect you at all. I just need your name there. It's only for a few months. I'll take care of everything. But this is one of the most deceptive favors someone can ask of you, because while it might be your name on the document, the risk stays with you, not them. Whether it's a lease, a loan, a credit application, a car note, or even something like a utility bill, the moment you sign your name, you are legally and financially responsible. No matter what promises they make, you're the one on the hook. And people who make this kind of request know that. That's why they ask you to do it. Because they can't. Let that land. If they could do it themselves, they wouldn't need your name. If they had the credit, the stability, the background check, the income, the responsibility, they wouldn't be knocking on your door with a pen and a favor wrapped in guilt. Here's the real problem. Once your name is attached, their problems become your liabilities. They might say they'll make every payment, that it won't impact you. But what happens when they're late, or miss a month, or abandon the situation altogether? You're the one the bank calls. You're the one who gets hit with late fees. You're the one whose credit drops. You're the one who might get sued. You're the one whose name is tied to a mess you didn't create. And when it all starts to fall apart, the same person who swore they'd be responsible is suddenly hard to reach, full of excuses or even angry at you for asking questions. They might act like you're being dramatic or accuse you of not trusting them, even though it's your name, your signature, and your future on the line. People like this know how to play on your emotions. They'll say you're helping them get on their feet, or just until they fix their credit, or because no one else believes in them. But you know what belief really looks like? Accountability, responsibility, transparency, not asking you to be the safety net for their bad decisions. And let's not forget, sometimes these favors aren't just financially risky, sometimes they're legally dangerous. Co-signing for someone who's reckless or dishonest can lead to lawsuits, garnished wages, repossessions, or worse. And depending on what they're asking you to sign, you might be tying your name to a business you know nothing about, a property you don't control, or a debt that will haunt you long after they disappear. So when someone says, "Can you just put your name on this just for a while?" ask yourself one thing. If something goes wrong, will they take the fall, or will you? Because no matter how temporary it seems, once your name is on it, the consequences are anything but temporary. On the surface it sounds playful, harmless, almost like a joke. Just act like you're my plus one. Say you were with me the whole time, no big deal. Can you just cover for me if someone asks? But behind the casual delivery is something deeper. A lie, dressed as loyalty. This kind of favor might not seem serious at first, but it quickly becomes one of the most dangerous traps, because it ties your truth to someone else's deception. Let's break this down. When someone asks you to pretend you were with them, whether it's to hide where they were, who they were with, or what they were doing, they're not just asking for your cooperation, they're asking for your collusion. They want you to bend reality so they can avoid consequences, dodge accountability, or manipulate someone else. Think about what this actually means. Maybe they're cheating and they need an alibi. Maybe they ditched work, lied to their family, or were somewhere they shouldn't have been. And now they want to wrap you into that mess with a grin and a wink, as if your integrity is just another tool in their escape kit. This isn't just about lying, it's about identity. Because when you pretend to be with someone, even for a few hours in a fictional timeline, you become part of a false story. And if that story unravels, and it usually does, guess whose name is tangled in it? Yours. Worse, it places a target on your back. You're not just seen as a friend, coworker, or sibling anymore. You become the cover-up. You're the one who vouched for a lie. And if it hurts someone else, a partner, a parent, a boss, a client, you become part of the betrayal, even if you weren't the one lying in the first place. Let's not overlook what this kind of favor says about the person asking. They're showing you something very clearly. They're doing something they know is wrong. They don't want to take responsibility for it. They're willing to let you carry the risk of being found out. And most of all, they trust your silence more than they respect your values. Because here's the harsh truth. Someone who truly respects you would never drag you into a situation that forces you to lie, sneak, or pretend on their behalf. They'd never use your presence or your absence as a pawn in their story. And even if it doesn't seem like a big deal in the moment, this type of favor creates a pattern. You pretend once, they ask again. The stakes get higher, the lies get messier. Suddenly you're part of a narrative that you didn't choose, but now you're tied to it, and the guilt, it doesn't go away, it sits with you, especially if your false story hurts someone else you care about. So when someone casually says, "Just pretend you were with me," remember, pretending isn't neutral, it's participation. It's complicity. And it's almost always a favor that costs you more than it ever costs them. This one is heavy, heavier than most people realize in the moment. When someone looks you in the eye and says, "Don't tell anyone what you saw," they're not asking you to respect privacy. They're asking you to carry the weight of their wrongdoing. They're asking you to bury the truth, and not just for a moment, but indefinitely, maybe forever. And let's be real, this kind of request usually comes after you've witnessed something that was never meant for your eyes. Maybe it was a betrayal, a violent outburst, a serious mistake, abuse, a crime, a deception so deep that if it came to light, it would cause chaos. So instead of taking responsibility, instead of owning what they did, the person turns to you and says, "Please don't say anything." And just like that, your silence becomes the only thing keeping their secret safe. Your voice becomes the one they hope will stay locked away, because if you speak, the truth escapes. Let's get one thing clear. This is not about someone confiding in you with a personal struggle, asking for support while they process something difficult. This is someone who has been caught, who has been seen, and now they want to control the damage by controlling you. It often comes wrapped in guilt or fear. If this gets out, you'll ruin everything. It's none of your business. Don't get involved. You don't understand the full story. Just keep quiet. Think of what could happen to me if you tell. But here's the question they never ask. What happens to you if you don't? What happens to your peace of mind, your conscience, your values, when you're forced to live with the weight of something you know isn't right? What happens to the people who deserve the truth, who are walking around in the dark while you're carrying the light, quietly, uncomfortably, alone? Your silence becomes a cage. You begin to censor yourself. You avoid eye contact. You withdraw. You become anxious. You play scenes over in your head, wondering what would happen if you spoke up. And often, the longer you stay silent, the more powerless you feel, like it's too late to say something, like you've already let it go too far. And that's exactly what they're hoping for. People who ask you to stay silent after doing something wrong are not trying to protect you, they're protecting themselves at your expense. They're taking your strength, your voice, and using it as a shield for their own recklessness. What their own recklessness? They're even free one. And the longer you carry it, the more it erodes your sense of right and wrong. This favor becomes a trap, because once you've agreed to stay silent, you're stuck. If the truth ever comes out, and it usually does, you'll be seen not just as a witness, but as an accomplice. You'll have to answer the questions they avoided. You'll be the one explaining why you said nothing, why you let it slide, why you looked the other way. And the most painful part, many times the people asking you to stay quiet wouldn't do the same for you. They wouldn't carry your burden. They wouldn't stay silent for your mistakes. They're not asking because they trust you. They're asking because they know you're decent, and they're hoping to take advantage of that. So when someone says, "Don't tell anyone what you saw," you have to pause, because they're not just asking for they're asking for your silence in service of their shame. This is the most subtle and perhaps the most dangerous kind of favor someone can ask, because unlike the other asks, which are usually tied to actions or outcomes, this one goes straight for the core of who you are. It targets your principles, your beliefs, your sense of right and wrong, and challenges you to compromise them in the name of friendship, loyalty, or just one-time convenience. Let's talk about what this really means. When someone says, "Can you go against your values just this once?" they're not just asking you to help them. They're asking you to betray a piece of yourself, and they're hoping your connection to them is stronger than your commitment to what you know is right. They want you to loosen your grip on your standards, just enough that they can slip through the rules and avoid judgment or consequences. And the worst part, they want you to feel guilty if you say no. These requests often come wrapped in emotional manipulation. "Don't be so uptight. You're always the good one. Can't you just bend this once? You know I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. This won't change who you are, it's just a favor. Everyone else does it. It's not that deep, but it is deep. Because your values are not window dressing. They are not flexible decorations that you hang up only when it's convenient. They are your foundation. the invisible code by which you choose to live, love, and lead. And every time you step over them, even slightly, you start to chip away at your self-trust. Maybe it's someone asking you to lie when honesty is one of your core principles. Maybe it's someone pushing you to be cruel or dismissive when you believe in compassion. Maybe it's someone asking you to do something shady in business when you believe in integrity. Maybe it's someone pressuring you into behavior you've worked hard to leave behind. And they'll always say the same thing: it's just this once. But it's never just once. Because once you prove you're willing to bend, they know where to push next. That line you once protected so fiercely, it starts to blur. You rationalize. You make excuses. And eventually you don't recognize the decisions you're making, because they're no longer grounded in your truth. They're rooted in someone else's comfort. That's the danger. Your values are what help you sleep at night. They're what allow you to look in the mirror without flinching. When someone asks you to go against them, they're not asking for a favor, they're asking you to unravel yourself in small, quiet ways. They might call you rigid, self-righteous, overdramatic. But standing by your values doesn't make you difficult, it makes you clear. And anyone who truly respects you wouldn't ask you to let go of what matters to you. Not for them, not for anyone. Because once you've crossed that line, even if no one sees it, even if the moment passes, you see it, you carry it. You remember what it felt like to let something sacred slip through your fingers for the sake of someone who only wanted you to be a little less you. So the next time someone leans in and asks for a favor that feels off, even if it sounds small, even if it's masked as love, loyalty, or urgency, pause. Listen to that quiet voice in your gut, the one that whispers, "This isn't right." Trust it. Because favors are not always acts of kindness. Sometimes they're silent contracts designed to manipulate you, trap you, or test how far you're willing to stretch yourself to keep someone else comfortable. And here's the truth: anyone who truly respects you will never ask you to betray yourself. Not your values, not your peace, not your future, not your integrity. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that you can't live with. You don't have to carry what's not yours. And you are allowed, fully allowed, to say no to anything that asks you to shrink, to lie, to cover, to sign, to hide, or to break your own moral compass. Never trust those who ask you for the kinds of favors that cost you pieces of yourself, because a real favor builds you. A fake one breaks you. And the difference is everything.